Hi, this is Peter Bracke, author of Crystal Lake Memories, The Complete History of Friday the 13th.
And I'm Tommy Hudson, producer of the documentary Crystal Lake Memories, and we are both thrilled to be taking a look at Friday the 13th Part 2 with a very special guest.
Joining us all the way back from 1981 in Camp Crystal Lake is...
This is Amy Steele. And yes, it's definitely not 1981, but
It
but
will
it
be right now.
feels a little bit like a time warp of some kind here in 2020 during these wacky
Yeah.
times of the pandemic. But yeah, here we are all together, and we're going to watch this film.
We are going to watch this film. And watching the beginning right here, something that always pops into my brain is your character was named after the production designer of this film.
That's right.
Yes, that's right. And I actually just heard that story the other day, which kind of sets the stage here for that. Um, so much of these films were kind of done just on the fly. And they just kind of go, well, let's name her this. Let's do this. How about if we do this? How about if we do that? So it was kind of interesting to hear that. It's like, let's just make her this and that. Like there wasn't a whole committee.
Virginia Field was the name of the production designer on the first two films, I think. What was your name, Jenny, in the script, Amy, originally?
Yeah, it was
Oh.
Ginny in the script, and it was Ginny Field.
And
So
here
that was
we
it.
are. We're looking back at the original film. We have Adrienne King as Alice, here in the second film, flashing back to the first. Now, Amy, you and Adrienne have gotten to know each other quite well in the
Hmm.
years since you have both been in these movies. Do you remember her talking about, this section of the movie, considering that you're both in the movie, but yet you are not together?
Well, yeah, she it's not her most favorite job, but she is incredibly passionate about the series and just devoted to the series. And um, it's she, the way she describes it is that it was the end of the shooting, and that everyone was a skeleton crew, and everyone was sort of bored of doing the film, and they were ready to move on. So it just wasn't the best role for her, considering all of the importance, almost, and the incredible things that she did with Betsy Palmer in the original film. I mean, that was a really important gig. And then here she doesn't really like her clothes. She doesn't even know where they came from, that green jumpsuit. She's got great stories about that, but she
Yeah.
did not like that.
She told me once that people thought she was pregnant because of the way it fit. It fit so poorly on her, the overalls or whatever she was wearing.
Yeah, maybe. Well, she's supposed to be really depressed and trying to recover.
Yeah.
So I guess it's kind of like depressing clothes, but um, she always looks so great. So it was so weird to have her in that outfit.
Well, Amy, when did you know that? Did you know that she was going to be in the movie in the opening when you took the role on? Because it's kind of like a passing of the baton kind of a role for
Right.
Adrian, right? Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that I did because I'm sure that was scripted. It was in the script. So I'm sure I knew, but obviously I wasn't here and didn't see any of it happen.
Now, speaking of, reading the script, what do you remember about getting the role?
Um, I remember I was doing a bunch of print jobs there when I was living in New York City, and I remember I was doing a print job in the Poconos, and you had to call your agents once a day. That's just from a payphone. There were no cell phones. And so what you do is you get your sort of day journal or whatever, and you find the nearest payphone, and you go to it and go, okay, so what's up? And they said, oh, okay, so what you're going to do is when you get back, I guess on Wednesday at 4 o'clock, you're going to audition for Friday the 13th, part two. And I said, oh, I don't know. I want to do, John Hughes films. Oh God, that scene when the head's cut off. But I said, I want to do John Hughes films, Spielberg. And they said, well, just give this a whirl. So I just remember kind of going in, once or twice, and you kind of sit in a room. You've got sort of a whole diverse crew there out in the casting. There's the black person, there's the dark haired person, there's the white person, there's the dark haired guy, there's the blonde woman. So I just, you just kind of fill in a gap. And then like I didn't really remember it was very complicated. Oop, here comes Jason
Yeah.
grabbing
grabbing,
Adrian.
grabbing.
Oh my God. They only had, that water was so cold. She tells stories about this. It was just awful. And they only had like one other set of clothes. So it was really hard for her to shoot this. But anyway, she also has long, long audition stories. And mine was not complicated. I think I went once or twice. And as Steve said, it's you, you, you. Okay, let's start.
And had
Which
you seen the first film prior to auditioning? What was your experience with Friday the 13th other than knowing it was, a pretty good horror hit and I might be in the next movie?
I had heard about it because it was breaking all these box office records. And it was like, oh my God, the summer, this movie. And I think before that it was Jaws and that kind of thing. And this movie, like, I don't think I had seen it though. Honestly, in Portland last year, we did a screening of part 1 and part 2, and Adrian was there and I was there. And then I watched part 1 and I was like, I don't think I've ever seen this film. So how weird
Really?
is that? Because I'm not a big horror fan. So I watched it with Adrian. I said, Adrian, I swear I don't think I've seen this film.
well, is that something because you're doing a sequel? Is that something where like does it help you to not see the original film, to not have any preconceptions? That way you're not influenced at all in what you're doing.
Yeah, I think at that age and everything, you want it to be this totally clean, clear slate that you invent your role yourself. And so probably there was a part of that maybe there was an intention to not see it. I can definitely see that happening.
So
So what was your oh, go ahead.
when you got the role, Amy, did you feel like this is going to be a really good thing for my career coming off of this, first horror hit? Were you concerned wanting to do John Hughes, but deciding, okay, I will do the horror film? How did this affect I mean, this was really your feature debut.
Yeah, I just thought I was just a gig. I had no idea it was going to do anything. I thought, oh, I'm an actor. I'm going to do a job. It'll be a stepping stone. And I had no idea that 150 years later, here we are talking about this film. And it's the one thing that has stuck with me, the one thing that's been more loyal to me than I have been to it. That's for sure.
Hmm. What was your reaction? Because you hadn't seen the first film, like when you actually got the script and you're reading it, like what did you think of, I guess I'd say the story and like what was happening? And I mean, I'm trying to imagine reading the script and you see, hatchet into head, machete into face, or what that reaction's like.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have a lot of impact on it. I just sort of thought, okay, I do this. Ginny runs from Jason. Ginny stops. Ginny turns. Ginny has machete. Ginny kisses Paul. It was more sort of like, I guess at that stage and in my life, it was kind of like, okay, I'm going to do this job. I do this. I do this. I do this. And it wasn't so much like, it's a horror film. It's scary because I've had so many people ask me about that. Like, what was it like to be in the film? It's a job. And at the same time, it's a kind of a creepy job in that you're constantly trying to get your nervous system wound up to come off as believable and dedicated and real and authentic. So it's a little bit of a nervy job, but you just put all your mind and body and spirit into it and hope it works.
And in terms of looking at, what you had to do with this movie, all the things you were just saying, how was it working with Steve as your director? Did he help you get to those places when you felt you needed to? What was that experience like?
Um, Steve was great in that. I think that maybe for some actors he wouldn't have been so great, but for me, I'm a little bit more. I just wanted everything straight. Like, tell me where you need me to be what to do for the camera angles and everything. Remember, it was film, so we couldn't just keep shooting things digitally. I think we had 3 takes maximum on everything. So tell me what my parameters are, and then I'll do what I want in there. So that felt pretty good. It felt like there was a holding, there was a structure to it. So you didn't have room to get really, really, really creative, but a lot could happen within each take. So for him, it was like, okay, I need you to do this, this, this. Great. Then I can create in that box. And I need you to do it. We can't mess up because we only have 3 takes. So when it was the technical difficulties with the camera and everything, everyone got upset. So, you could kind of see that you didn't, as an actor, as a young actor, I didn't want to mess anything up because people got upset, you know?
Was there ever any times when you actually messed up all 3 takes?
Um, well, Steve Dash, may he
Hmm.
rest in peace. I mean, there were plenty of times where I missed my cues, as Steve Dash likes to talk about how horrible stunt people actors are. Because you're so involved in the moment that you forget when, like, if you're gonna supposed to kick him on like count of 3, 1, 2, 3, kick. As an actor, you get so nervous. It's 1, 2, kick. It's like, so the poor guy, like he said, I broke his ribs, I cut his finger, I did all these things because you just get so involved in it that yeah, so I mean, in that way, maybe, but I don't remember. Nothing sticks with me that, like, oh my God,
Hmm.
they're all saying she can't hit a mark or she's the worst. Like, I don't remember that.
One of the interesting things I always find when watching this film is, and there we are, Amy Steele,
And
is you don't actually show up in the movie for quite a while,
yeah.
which I think is interesting. And did you ever think when you were reading the script, or even after reading the script and you're filming the movie, watching the movie for the first time, thinking, wow, I'm the lead of the movie, but I'm really not in the movie right now?
Again, Tommy, it's like, okay, I'm just going to do my part. I'm going to do my role. I'm going to do whatever they tell me to do. Okay, Amy, your call. You show up on Tuesday at 2 o'clock. I don't remember. That is funny. Virginia Field.
Yeah.
Virginia Field.
Mhm.
Huh. Um, Certain things like don't stick with me, and I know I've heard that story about her, but I don't remember. I wonder why she got the lead character named after her.
Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe it
Yeah.
just sounded good. Yeah. Um,
Hmm. But anyway, it was more of just, okay, I'm going to do my role, and they'll show up and just, I don't know. I don't remember thinking, wow, I've got the lead. I was more like, wow, I've got a job.
I mean, is there ever a
What?
moment though, yeah, as like the lead, they'll be like, "Oh shit, I'm the lead. Like, I have to do all this stuff and carry this movie." Especially since it's your
No, I
first.
never thought of that. It was more like I get to stay till the end or something like that. It was or I don't know. I think maybe it was just slow on the uptake on these things. But I just like I didn't really notice that. It's more like you fill this role. But I mean in hindsight, maybe it's good I didn't see that because maybe I would have been too nervous.
Yeah, here we have Sandra and Jeff, and like you were saying, Tommy, it's 15 minutes into the movie, and this is the first time anyone from the main cast has even showed up on screen.
But looking back in terms of having played the role and doing all the things you needed to do, were other movies you did later kind of, in a way, easier because of everything you had learned and done on a film like this?
Do you know what? I think this was a great learning experience for me about showing up and 1, 2, 3, bam, cry. 1, 2, 3, bam, run, scream, whatever. It was a great training. And from this on out, I think I had to take everything really, really seriously because you can't mess up when there's a whole crew there kind of counting on you to get the script, the pages done that day. So you have to really, really show up. So in that way, I think it was a great training ground. And then maybe in some other ways, I don't know, maybe I got spoiled that it would also just work because it worked really well afterwards. I got some great reviews. So maybe a part of me also got lazy. I was like, yeah, I just have to show up. Yeah, that's all I have to do. No problem. I'll pull it off. But I remember seeing the film for the first time in a movie theater and thinking, oh my God, I was so much more afraid than what you see. But other people didn't see that. I did. I thought it could have been bigger, but I remember being so frightened or working myself up into a frenzy and not really seeing it on film. But that might have just been my problem.
I don't know, it really comes through for you. Always look terrified to me in the end. I know we'll talk about that
Yeah.
more when we get to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
here we have. Do you remember working with? We have Marta Kober as Sandra and Bill Randolph as Jeff. And coming up in a few moments, we'll also see Stu Charno. What are your memories of working with them?
They were all really, really great. I mean, they ended up working a lot. They spending a lot more time together than I did, but we all lived at this camp and where we did the shooting. And Cliff Cudney, he was really great too, the stunt coordinator. But we were all just friends. It was fun. And Stu Charno, he is he. I don't know, is he still around? I know he had Parkinson's really bad, but he was a martial arts guy. And he was the first person that ever introduced me to Taekwondo or some kind of martial art thing. And also, I remember we were standing outside my cabin one day, and he said, "Yeah, when you stand up straight, all you have to do is think about bringing your shoulder blades down your back." And I've never forgotten that. It's like you just bring your shoulders down to like really get your posture going. A little nugget that stayed with me forever. Um, and Bill Randolph was just always a really kind, attentive, kind of just really sweet guy. And Marta, I didn't get to know Marta as well. I just sort of don't really remember what was going on. I don't know. I don't know.
Was there anything you guys did like when you first met? Like there was like a big group. Do you guys go to dinner first or hang out to kind of get chemistry going?
I don't have anything like really sticking with me, but we all stayed at this camp and then all the meals were in the big dining hall. And so we all were together. But towards the end of the film, I remember everybody went home and I was there for like probably a couple weeks, just me and the crew doing all the Ginny stuff. And Steve Dash and everyone else had gone home.
That kind of sounds like a scary, lonely experience to be at this dark camp. So it's one thing to be there with all these other kids and stuff, but to be
Yeah.
like,
But then
Well,
to be living where you're
yeah,
filming it, it's like you're living the movie.
yeah. But you know what? We shot at night. So during the day you're supposed to sleep. So it was light. But every night, the call was for like 5 o'clock at night and we'd shoot all the way till 5 or 6 in the morning. Um, but again, like, when you watch the film, it gets to you one way and then it's all scary. But when you're doing it and you're in it, it's more of like, oh God, I'm exhausted. Oh my God, I'm exhausted. I can getting through this. I can do it. I was wiped out, really wiped out at the end of this film. I like to say we're not a nocturnal. Human beings are not a nocturnal creature.
well, it's too hard because actually you first you shoot during the day and then you have to suddenly flip to nights like within
Yeah,
a day or two.
yeah. And then Kristen Baker, she was really sweet. We kind of got to be friends, and she was, I think I remember we went jogging a couple times. Obviously, didn't look like that, but she we'd go jogging. I think she kind of worked out a little, and she was after the film. She came over and she was like eating macrobiotically, and I was like, macrobiotics? What the hell is that?
She was ahead of her time for sure.
Yeah, she was way ahead of her time. She was definitely a little health nut.
I think we saw Russell Todd and Tom McBride as well, right? Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and Russell Todd, always a really sweet guy. And I saw him a couple times at a convention. He looks great. And I saw Lauren. Lauren's a runner. Um, uh, yeah, she's great. And then Tom, rest in peace. He's not with us either.
And John Fury as your
Oh yeah,
partner in
John.
crime, Paul Holt.
Yeah, John. And here I come. Yeah, John was always kind of funny and always, he had done a lot of work before, so he was more cocky in his role. I was like, I just got to get this right. Um,
And here we also have the first of three fleeting moments where your character shares screen time with, but does not really interact with at all. Crazy Ralph, played, of course, by Walt Gorney. So, do you have any memories of him or working with him? Or what were your
no,
thoughts about him?
I don't remember. I mean, remember we were a bunch of kids, and he was just an old dude, so we didn't really have much of anything to do with him. But I think he was a pretty sweet guy. And then here I come. I remember this is one of the first shots. It was kind of
Yeah, I was
the
going to ask you, do you remember the exact first actual shot you were in that you filmed? Not.
I think this was it. And like those are my clothes. Um, and like this was my first I had done another little film before this, but this was yeah, the first shot.
Did you and John do any kind of, let's get to know each other, let's hang out before we actually start shooting? Because the chemistry between you guys is really, really good.
Um, well, I don't know. I don't know if I'm a real method actress, but just kind of like hang out with people. I mean, you got to just be authentic, right? So rather than try to build anything, you just sort of you're just there having a relationship, trying to get to know him. But it's not like we really knew each other, but we're doing a job. We're both authentic people, and you just do it, It just worked. It just worked. He was funny. He also really made me laugh. And there's nothing like being able to laugh.
So I think Tommy, right? You had a question about this that was their relationship supposed to be a secret from the other counselors? Because it kind of seems
Yeah,
like John Fury. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, there are moments where you and John, you have steal a quick kiss, or you end up, potentially in bed together, but none of the other camp counselors see it. So we were just kind of talking about, did that ever come up where the relationship was meant to be a secret from everyone in the cast?
Right. I don't know if that was really a conversation. I feel like we were trying to be professionals, so to speak.
To be the
So
adults in the room.
yeah, we were trying to be. He was the head of the whole thing, so I just sort of think instinctively, you're not just going to flaunt some relationship.
It's
Uh,
funny too. So I think maybe it's baked in the script, but it seems like throughout the movie you kind of always get one up on him. Like here the motor sputters in his face, and later that moment when you beat him in chess and stuff like that. Like he's always there's kind of an interesting, fun dynamic where you're always kind of one step ahead of him.
yeah.
I don't know if that was something.
Well, it's sort of perfect for his character, right? And also for Ginny. It was like I maybe it's like establishing, guess what? She's always one step ahead.
Mhm.
She's always thinking, she's always on it, and she's not going to let some dude, you know, tell her what to do or yeah, go ahead.
You're,
Sorry I'm late, but you know what? You're not going to punish me for it. That's for
that's
sure.
yeah, that's right. In that moment right now, they just introduced that you're a you're studying to be a child psychologist, which is a cool angle.
Hmm. Yeah, so the fact that she was always kind of thinking um, and learning and trying to understand and curious, I think that's what just made Jenny such a great character. She and also she was strong and an individual. She wasn't gonna It's so funny because so much of what I've already said is like, oh, I didn't want the crew to get upset. Oh, I didn't want to make sure it was wrong. But yet Ginny was sort of the opposite. She was like, fuck it. I don't care. I'm going to do what I do and I'm just going to do the best I can and have a good time. So maybe I sort of have to learn from her, or I did learn from her in the film.
Well, I think this is also an interesting moment because now we're getting through Paul the sort of story and the legend of Jason, which had never come up before. And as we can see, Ginny is very, very intently listening. And
Yeah.
it comes up later because then you take the information that you have, and as we see, you end up really describing what you believe could be going on with that character. And I think that also gives a layer to Ginny, thinking one step ahead, being smarter than what many people think a woman in these films is or should be.
Yeah, so like you look at Lauren and me, the difference between those two characters. Lauren is like looking, going, huh. I'm looking, going,
Your wheels are turning.
my wheels are really turning. And I don't know if I would like to take credit that I had all this methodically thought out, but I really don't. I think it was sort of the character and kind of who I am. It's like I'm not just gonna buy this shit for nothing.
Well, and it pays off at the end too when you wear the sweater as well. So
Yeah.
it all.
Yeah.
Was Tom McBride always in the character, always in a wheelchair from the beginning?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, God, I think Steve had a story about that. Didn't he? About the
It
wheelchair?
was the Boston guys wanted a
Mm.
character in a wheelchair. They wanted
Yeah.
a death of a character in a wheelchair.
Right. And then Steve, the sort of a little bit before said, let's put him down the stairs backwards, right? Is that right?
Yep.
Because he saw the location and said, we can do this, and this is how we can
Uh,
do it, and things like that. And
What was it like shooting in such a remote look? This is Kent, Connecticut, correct? It was shot in?
yeah. Well, you know what? I had gone to boarding school there 2 years before this film. So to go back to this town and in a completely different way. I mean, at boarding school, no smoking, no drinking. The girls' school was 4.5 miles away from the boys' part of the school. I mean, it was so different. And all of a sudden, I'm here, like I'm in a film, drinking, smoking, fraternizing. Now it's like, how great is this? Um, yeah, it's really fun. But
what
yeah,
was what was off time like on the set? Since you're all there, and like you're saying, you're having fun. You're all young. Was it we're exhausted, we're going to bed, or was there a lot of let's hang out and let's have some fun?
Um, it was so fun. The fun part I remember, which is very strange, is that is in the morning. It was when we wrapped. Like there'd be, scrambled eggs and bottles of booze on the table. And so we kind of partied a little bit then. And then I remember there were some nights, but mostly is interesting because like in any way, everyone kind of goes off into their cliques or their little groups or their people that they're drawn to, even while everybody's sort of living here at the camp, because the whole crew was living at the camp too. So some people were drawn to the grips, some people were drawn to the execs, some people, it's like you kind of go off into your places.
So here's a
And
question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I don't know if it's a silly question, but so all the other counselors in the background that don't get speaking parts, like, was
Right.
there cliques? Like, did they hang out by themselves, and only the guys that all you had speaking parts hung out in
Yeah,
their own group?
probably. Actually, because I bet you those people were lived in town. I wonder if they weren't even from New York. God, I wish I had that body now. I'm sure I thought I was fat then. I'm like going, oh my God, whose body is that?
How was okay? So filming the there usually is no talk of having the lead in these kinds of movies have nudity. Was there ever any talk? Was there any uncomfortability of like how far things are going to go? Or was Steve very methodical about that? You're going to do X, Y, and Z, hit these marks with the robe and your shirt?
Yeah, no, there was no creepiness about it because I had done a film before this, and we had agreed to no nudity. And then on the set, the director was like, "She has to take off her shirt." I was like, "Oh my God, holy shit!" So, this film, no, it was just that's how far it was going to go. And I'm not the most comfortable person to take off my clothes in film anyway. So it was like that's all you get, you know. But
Oh, you know what he says here? I'm not supposed to be fraternizing with the staff. It answers all of the questions, I guess. You're right. They have to be the
right,
adults in the room.
yeah,
So, and while this is going on, we have, franchise icon Crazy Ralph, and I believe Steve had said that he sort of regretted
Mm-hmm.
killing off Crazy Ralph, or at least killing him off so early because he thought the character was great, and it would have been nice to have him around a little more.
yeah. That was what he said. He really wanted that guy. Yeah. So, yeah, that was a regret for sure.
But I think it's
Did you?
interesting that or Jenny's two moments with Crazy Ralph are not even moments. You just happen to be in the same place at the same time, and that's it.
Yeah. He, I think it's one of those things where like the whole camera's outside and John and I just had to sit in there and keep making out. I mean, okay, hold on, keep going. We'll tell you when. It's like, okay, okay, you got the shot?
Yeah, I never noticed that you guys in the background out of focus
Yeah,
there.
exactly. See,
Yeah.
they keep cutting back, but like when you're really doing the shot, look, we're
You're
still,
really there.
yeah, you're really in there. It's like, okay, we're doing close up. Okay, we're doing a, yeah,
Now, this brings up an interesting conversation, and Peter and I have talked about this before. I think we can safely assume Ginny and Paul had sex,
yes.
which turns on its head the whole idea that of virgins are safe and women who have sex are not. And I think that it's interesting that in this franchise, which has become known for sex equals death, it's kind of not really true, particularly in the beginning.
Well, yes, I think that's a really, really good point. But um, they definitely slept together, no question. But obviously, Beware of Bears, after that whole thing, is that she was having her period.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they didn't necessarily have sex. I don't know. But I think that they did already have sex. Like they've been having a relationship.
Yeah, and I
Oh
think
yeah,
you can
definitely.
also look at the first film where Alice had, I think we can assume, had sex with Steve Christie. So
Mm-hmm.
once again, she is not the innocent virginal character, and Ginny is not the innocent virginal character. I think that that's a really interesting thing that this franchise has been dinged on is sex equals
Mm-hmm.
death, when I don't think that that's necessarily true.
But you know what? The women where it's sex equals death, it's just different. It's like all their focus is on a relationship or getting laid or something like that. With Adrian's character and with Ginny, it was more of they're living their life and sex was like a bonus or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. It wasn't all they were focused on, whether it be how they dress, whether it be what their motivation is.
They
They
had
also live
goals.
life. They had goals, exactly.
Muffin, poor Muffin.
Oh,
Oh,
did you
Muffin.
did you do any
Great.
bonding with the dog with Muffin?
Well, usually pet people on sets, they are very, very tight with the pets. Like they don't fraternize with, you don't fraternize with show, with what do you call it, movie
Talk about
dogs.
a click.
Yeah, really.
Now, I think this is interesting. You and the chainsaw is sort
Mm.
of a seed planted because you're going to use that later. And I think it's another moment. I think the chess moment, you beat him at chess, and with the car earlier, and now the chainsaw. You are a smart, tough character. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
that shows.
Yeah. I'm not just
You're always
tr- trying to figure out when I'm gonna have sex. I'm like, I'm planning my survival.
well. You're a master chess player. Apparently, you're always planning your next move in
That's
advance, right?
right.
And a
Oh,
lumberjill. I mean,
Yeah.
really.
yeah.
I love the
Yeah.
short shorts.
I
Very.
know. I wish I
Oh,
had
the
those
80s.
And those legs. I mean, my God, what happened to me? And it's so funny. You look back, you go, God. And even then, I was like, oh, I was probably insecure about everything. But anyway,
I always thought this scene looked like it was fun. You're all at the beach, you're hanging out. I mean, this scene had to have been fun. Right now, you're in a bikini talking to some people. I mean, in terms of making a movie, it probably doesn't get a little more fun than this.
yeah, I think it was really, really fun. It was really fun. Um, yeah, just kind of hanging out with everybody.
Oh, the one thing though,
Um,
this wasn't shot in the summer, right? So this wouldn't have been that warm out at the
it
time.
was the
It's like,
fall. And I think that day was sort of warm. I don't remember being too cold that day. But in New England, you swim in those lakes, they're always cold.
Mm-hmm. And if I'm not mistaken, and Peter, you can correct me, I think you might remember, Steve has mentioned that this was the first stuff he shot for the film.
yep. The very first
Yes.
scene. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you hang out for any? I guess you probably are, because since you're the lead, especially, you're probably so tired hanging around for shots you're not in generally.
Yeah, no, I was doing something. I was sure I was. I didn't just go to the set to hang out.
Mm.
Definitely not. I don't know. I was probably doing something. I'm a little bit like just personally, I'm a little bit of a not a loner, but I'm just not a big joiner. So I'm a reader and a walker. I'm sure I went for walks by myself in Jason Land. And so I don't know.
It's funny because Adrienne said the same thing about herself on the first film, that she
Oh,
stayed a little
yeah.
bit more separate. Maybe that kind of fits in with your characters too, because you guys are the lead and more resourceful and a little
Yeah.
way apart from the group. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why, I mean, I feel like sometimes they all just had a great time and I'm just not as, I just don't do that as easily as some other people do.
How did you feel working with Steve? Because he was technically a first-time feature director at this point. He had done some industrial films, I believe, and of course worked on other film. Do you like working with first-time directors?
Well, I mean, I was such a new person myself, but I think again, like what made it easy for Steve is like he knew exactly what he needed. It's almost like a mathematical equation. And so he just had to get exactly what he wanted. He knew what he was going to get. Like everything was different. There's nothing wishy-washy. So that sort of worked for me. Poor muffin. So that kind of gave me more confidence and trust in him. Maybe I didn't always agree or feel like creatively inspired, but in some ways it felt very secure for me to have him know what he wanted.
The sheriff, played by Jack Marks.
Oh, Steve had good stories about him.
One of the things I'm wondering, and this is just dawning on me now, when is this camp opening? It doesn't seem like anyone's really doing anything to get it open, but there are no kids.
Well, this is
Well,
a
there's
training ground,
a
right? Is this? Yeah, it's a
yeah.
trans.
This is
Yeah.
just training. We're just training. We're getting ready for the kids. There's a lot of prep that happens.
Yeah, going to the beach.
Yeah, hanging out.
I think John has mentioned that he ad libs his line right here about no dessert,
Mm-hmm.
no seconds on dessert.
Yeah. John is like he's just sort of a consummate actor. He's always trying to figure something out or an angle or, get a little screen time. Like he's just he's sort of like wired that way. He understands the whole kind of film stuff. So I didn't know any of that. So maybe it worked for me too.
So actually, I wanted to ask. The first two films were shot on the East Coast, so I know talking with the casting directors that a lot of the actors came from theater and New York theater scene as opposed to in the West Coast where Hollywood. Is that something you found in your career after this movie and going more to Hollywood and doing more Hollywood projects? That there's a difference between shooting on the East Coast and West Coast. And
Yeah, the East Coast felt felt a lot more direct. Like you go do this, everyone's there. Oh hi, you see people casting. Oh hi, how you doing? You always see the same people. It was just like boom, 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 job. It was like efficient. And when you get to California, there's much more like nobody says as many things. Everyone's got a secret and they're quiet. And you spend a lot more time like in your car, wondering, thinking. Whereas in New York, like, you go to an audition, you get in the subway. Like everything is just so much, um, nothing's hidden. Everything's just out there. And in Hollywood, it just felt more mysterious.
that's right, because Steve said, I think he said, I think you as well, that people think of this as a Paramount movie, but really this was an independently made movie. There was no one watching over you. There weren't studio suits on the set at any point, right?
Yeah. He said that they just could do basically whatever they wanted. There were only a couple things that the investors wanted. The guy in the wheelchair. And then what else did he say? There was one
I
other
think it
thing,
was
I think.
the rat
The
peeing. I
rat
believe it
pee,
was.
yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's right. I kept
Oh, you're
thinking that
paying.
there's
Sorry.
like a fetish where some guy wanted somebody to pee. But yeah. So but basically they could do anything. Isn't that just such a great way to make a film? And then especially if you have a vision and you know exactly what you want, so great.
And now, speaking of, whether there was interference by executives or anything like that, did Frank Mancuso Jr. He was on set, correct?
Yeah, he and Tommy Gruenberger, they were really fun. Gruenberg,
Hmm.
we called him Gruenberger, I think. Um, and John, we laughed all the time. Oh my God. Yeah, Frank Mancuso Jr. was there, and he took his job very seriously, very seriously. So we give him shit about it, but he was like he had the ability to really see what needed to be accomplished, um, as a producer. Like he knew exactly what he needed and what wanted to be what he needed to do. But I think he was like 23, and
Right.
yeah, he was just he took himself very seriously, but he was also willing to kind of laugh at himself.
Did you ever meet the three infamous investors, the East Coast investors?
No,
Mm.
not that I remember. I mean, I bet you they came to the set one time, but I don't remember.
Betsy Palmer said once on the first movie they came to the set once, and she thought they were mob people. They seemed very mob-like. So,
Oh, right. Yeah. I think the whole thing was just so new to me that I didn't really know what a gaffer was. I didn't really know a lot of stuff. I remember that guy Jamie, the black guy right there. He was there a lot. He was kind of fun. He was really sweet. God, look at Kirsten's shirt. Jesus, that's amazing.
That's a choice.
Wow. And a lot of these clothes were our own clothes too.
it's just so wild. They made you wear your own clothes. They didn't even provide costumes.
Yeah, they did. I mean, for especially if you need doubles.
Hmm.
But like that first scene with me in the skirt, like there was only just one scene, so they didn't care.
They said, "Come in your best skirt."
Yeah, come in your best skirt and a cute top, or bring. They would say, bring us some of your own stuff. We'll see if we use it. And then like bring all your shit, and then they go nah 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 nah, and they got this whole bag of stuff with you.
To overanalyze it, is that something that helps you as an actress with the character, how she dresses and how you saw Jenny and what she kind of has like a real natural feel to her, like she's not about too much makeup or
Yeah.
overdoing it.
Well, for me, I just have to be comfortable. I have to feel good in the clothes. And so if they're really not me, I can't really do it. So at least for this character, if I was playing, I was actually a nun one time and it felt really fun. But I think I don't remember exactly the wardrobe choice, but you got to think ahead. So like it was going to be cold. So I had that little like thermal on and then that other shirt. And then the jeans, I mean, those things you can just change out all the time and be warm. Because if I'm going to spend a month at night, I want to be comfortable.
And speaking of
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
comfortable, I think
Yeah,
poor Kirsten Baker is about to freeze
yeah.
in this
See
cold,
that?
cold lake.
That's just like I just would not be cast in that. I just couldn't do it. But look, she looks great.
Mhm.
And I think Steve talked about how she was such a trooper. And and that night she's like, everybody can come down, come down. You can see my, and they usually have like those little skeleton crews. But I think she probably worked really hard at her body and was like, check it out. I don't blame her.
So this scene, a lot of these people in this location are just patrons, correct?
Yeah, they're locals. It was like, okay, we're gonna shoot this movie, Friday 13th Part 2. Come and be a extra for the night. And so I think that's what it was. And maybe the real bartender. I think the person as a bartender is the real bartender there.
And I think that place burned down in real life. I think that bar, if
Yeah,
I'm not
I think
mistaken.
it did too. And then everyone loves to talk about the Kiss pinball machine.
This was definitely done before Me Too. This whole her with Russell stealing her clothes and everything. I don't know
Yeah,
if you could do
definitely.
that today. Yeah.
And him being that sort of obnoxious self
Mm,
in the bushes. Yeah, he that would not work
That would
today.
not fly today.
no. Although I
No.
guess you can argue he gets his comeuppance, so right? I mean, he does die pretty
Yeah.
horribly.
She also takes it incredibly well. She's like, oh, you. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I want my
Sure.
clothes back.
But it's interesting because these movies are so criticized for being so bloody and violent, but here we are, like 45 minutes in. There's only been about what one, two murders. I mean, no.
Is, isn't that why sort of that people, it's just more the buildup and why they ended up
Hmm.
liking this movie so much?
Oh yeah, kid, I love like the atmosphere and the waiting and the anticipation. That's what was more exciting than just you know kill after kill or anything. If you didn't have some differentiation of character, it wouldn't have been fun. I think that some of the later movies, the criticism was got ridiculous to where like 30 people are dying in a movie and you just can't
It's set him up,
connect.
knock him down. But
Hmm.
here you can pinpoint a characterization for each person. You can kind of give them a personality. And I mean, look at Laura
Hmm.
Marie Taylor is like the cutest thing ever.
Yeah.
She's cute and she's sweet, and you kind of get that these two are going to have some sort of tryst. And
Hmm.
it's fun to watch these two, and you kind of hope nothing will happen. Even though I guess, like you're saying, Amy, everyone's watching this movie for the thing to happen.
I know. I mean, she is one forward girl, though,
Oh
isn't she?
yeah.
Hmm.
My God. She
Totally.
will not leave that poor guy alone.
Well, if you even look back at the movie, she's kind of always there. When they're at the beach, she's just right up next to his wheelchair. Like
Yes.
she's just decided that this is the guy that I'm going
Yeah.
to be with this summer, whether he likes it or not.
She's like a border collie on him. She's just like, bam.
Although I guess I don't know if irony is the right word, but she decides to stay. I just realized she decides to stay at camp to be with him, and she ends up. She would have gone to the bar and stayed there. She would have lived, I guess.
Yeah, her
So
decision to stay with the man she wanted cost her
yeah,
her
that's
life.
her life.
Now this is, I mean, like she's like, oh, you're such a, you're
Yeah.
such a schmo, and I'm like, he should not be doing that. It's not very
No.
nice.
No.
Well, but she does kind of, as you said, she doesn't really take him very seriously. She's just like, you're such
No.
a jerk. And she
Yeah.
Hmm.
does roll after him.
So do you
That
remember
is
Amy? Like,
just, what? Go ahead.
oh, it's the first time you remember like meeting up with everyone again at like a convention. I'm sure it was what, probably 10, 20 years later that you saw any of these folks again, or did you stay in touch with anyone over the
No,
years?
I hadn't seen them. And all of a sudden I saw them at the convention. And it was like, hey, how you doing? It was like we never missed a day. It's just like, hey. um, yeah, it was kind of nice.
Well, it's sort of like a boot camp. I mean, you're in the woods shooting nights for what, probably I think 4 weeks.
Hmm.
You're all together. You just become like, and it happens on so many movies, a film family. And it's nice when you see them, however many years, decades, whatever later, you can kind of just catch up again from where you left off in a way because you got
Yeah.
so close so fast.
Well, also you have a piece of history that you have together that will never go away,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
It's just you you are a part of something that you always keep you connected.
It's a good thing she has a knife buried in one of her dresser drawers.
I know.
That's a cool shot.
Yeah,
Steve
I
did
always
some
That
like
really
is.
that
great
one.
stuff.
I know. And then Steve talked about how hard it is to keep somebody upside down, that you just like kind of pass out. You have to like keep them.
After a few minutes, I think he said.
Yeah.
Well, also, he talks about how when he was describing this movie and saying to his mother that his mother was like, "Are you sure this isn't a snuff film?"
Mm,
Oh yeah. Ugh, I
gruesome.
so remember that when they did the makeup for Russell, we had to break for dinner and he sat there and he had all these tubes in his neck. He could only like drink out of a straw. It was so creepy.
Did you hang out and watch any of the death scenes being filmed?
Um, I don't know if I did or not. I think it's just so busy. And then a lot of times you have to do it twice and um
Because it's interesting. This is back when like makeup effects were still like kind of brand new. Where like I mean, it was like amazing. Like oh my god, like this stuff. Now with CGI, it's totally different. But
yeah.
you know,
But the practical things that they were able to accomplish were, shocking and
mhm.
oftentimes realistic.
Yeah. It was very scary. It was Carl Fullerton. Isn't that who that's who it was?
Mhm.
And he God, he was just such a quiet, mild guy. And then he would do these just horrific makeup jobs and you just go, ah, like that in itself was weird.
There is a lot of dancing going
A lot
on.
of white people
Yeah.
A
dancing.
lot
A
of
lot of
white
white
people
people
dancing.
dancing, really.
I wonder if any of these people
Uh,
watch this movie and go, "That was me.
oh,
There
they
I was."
do. I betcha. I just remember a couple of those guys dancing there.
I want to know what happened to the Smoky Boy Inn. That's the name of the band. The credits.
Oh, huh.
So now she was a bartender, correct?
I think so, but you know what? Now I think maybe she was a New York actress that came in
Okay.
the bar. Yeah. But I think some of the other people were like real bartenders and
So I would think if they have an on-screen like speaking moment, does it have
They
to
have
be
to be
like
paid,
SAG or something?
probably.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, she was from New York, that one.
There's
Uh,
the
There's the
Kiss pinball machine.
yeah, there's a Kiss pinball machine.
Now, here we are with, honestly, a moment that, Amy, I'm sure you hear all the time. A big, big part of this movie and what became a big part of this franchise, your monologue about Jason and the concept and the psyche of this child kind of carried the character through the rest of the franchise.
Yeah, God, who knew? Oof, good thing I didn't know that then, because those are real beers they were giving us. And I'm like, I have a lot of lines to memorize right now. It's just like not give me
This
too
is
much.
a this is like a monologue for your character.
hmm
Yes, yeah,
No, but you're absolutely right, Tommy. I mean, this is the definition of Jason. This is who he is. This is where all the psychology comes from. Again, not to overstate it, but um, I mean, when you think of Jason, his backstory, it's all because of you, Amy. It really is.
yeah, defining it for him.
We already like Ginny, but I think this is one of the big moments that helps to define the character even further. It's been shown that you're smart and you know how to take care of yourself, but now you're really thinking about things going on. You're thinking about the character of Jason, you're thinking ahead, and I think it can be overlooked how important this character was in horror films, particularly in the 80s, but also in the Friday the 13th franchise.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh God, thank God for that, Ginny. I mean, at least, I mean, imagine if we didn't have that character who defined all of that
Hmm?
and sort of, I mean, I think the series would be different.
Well, because that's the thing about Jason is he's a little bit of a victim himself. He drowned
Yeah.
and mother was killed. I mean, you set that all up. That he's not just some crazy guy. He was hurt too.
Yeah,
But
exactly. Exactly.
is that something that when you read on the page, did you know that was like an important moment? You got the script, like, oh, this is going to be. I'm looking forwad to this, or you know.
Well, again, I wish I could say that, but it was more like, oh God, I better pull this off. And because I think, it's important when you have to define the character like that. I mean, you're saying a lot in between the words, and it just felt like, again, like responsibility that I've got to maintain something and pull this off and have it believable.
Well, and the other thing is, at this point in the franchise, we were not overtly aware that Jason, that character that jumped out of the lake, was the killer. If you watch the original trailers for this film, there are no inclinations or hints that it is Jason, the boy from the lake.
Right.
So the whole movie is really a build up to the final reveal of the fact that it's this man child, that has been set up with a hand here and a foot there and a shadow, and then your description, and then all of a sudden here it is, full blown, killer with a bag on his head.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, that's what's interesting too, is you don't see the bag until I think another 10 minutes. Like now, they would show Jason from the first frame with his man. He's like an icon and a superstar. But back then, yeah, I mean, he's just a shadow and legs, like you said, Tommy, for most of the
Mm-hmm.
movie.
So in this scene, Bill had done a lot of theater. He's older than he looks, really. And doesn't that look like a scene from on a play? Isn't it, with that hat on and
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
playing the harmonica?
Yeah, I think he said he wanted to kind of do a slight Blues Brothers feel to the character, which were big at the time.
Mm. And I know Marta was really young, and I think Bill he was old. So I think he was like 28,
Oh.
27,
Wow.
like old. And all of us were, yeah. Oh my God.
And there's Lauren Marie being, what does the winner get? I mean, she is. I've never thought about it,
Yeah.
Amy. She's pretty forward.
Oh my God. She's just unrelenting, that poor guy.
I don't know. He looks pretty happy.
Ah. He's
Oh,
like,
this is.
okay, tell me what to do.
I believe it's the first day
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
scheme of the timing of the movie, so it did
Yeah.
not take her long. She bagged her man.
I mean, she got him stoned and she's moving in.
Oh, and this is funny. This kind of mirrors your scene earlier in terms of, like, changing and things like that. It's almost
Mm-hmm.
a mirror of what happened earlier, but her fate is obviously
Yeah.
very different.
And then, when I watched part one with Adrian that night, there's so many similarities. Oh my God, okay. We're at that moment where the girl takes off her shirt, changes, or they're in the kitchen. It was really a very interesting formula, wasn't it?
Well,
Mm-hmm.
and I think Steve had mentioned
Timing.
too that his job was to, not remake the first film, but
Mm,
remake the first film in a way and
yeah.
find a way to expand on it and take it to the next level. But there are a lot of similarities, and I think you're right. There are certain pieces to the puzzle, and they all have to go in a certain order.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was a pretty good formula. It was pretty successful.
Yeah, Steve had said he really loved the structure of the first film. So you watch, I mean, even to the minute sometimes, like,
Hmm.
the first act, second act, third act, it's all pretty much the same.
Yeah. I mean, why reinvent the wheel?
Yeah. But that's what fans
Just
like. I mean, you kind of want the same thing, but different.
yeah, exactly. And then you just kind of do your upgrade. You make the lighting a little bit better, editing a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of perfume.
That is, oof, you can almost smell it. Well, he's so stoned. She's got to really
She's got to really
she's
amp
got to
it up.
break through that stone barrier.
I remember Lauren told me she was really worried about this scene, so I think for like a week before, all she ate was celery because she wanted to make sure she looked okay for the camera.
Oh, she is such a dedicated, devoted actor. Enthusiastic too. I guess just like her character.
And she was really young too. I think she was like 18 or something, just turned
Mhm.
18.
Yeah.
This is an interesting long sequence with her of multiple, will everything be okay at this moment or this moment, and then, you know when she ends up getting what happens to her, it's much more unexpected, I think.
Yeah, I don't think they do this much anymore. Like, I think what fans love about these films too is the build up and taking time for atmosphere like this. Like nowadays, I don't think everything's so much faster paced. You kind of lose some of
Yeah.
that.
Well, I think that's one of the beauties of this film is, again, you like the people, you like the characters, you aren't exactly sure what's going to happen, and there's a lot of tension in this film. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember when we ended up going to one of those anniversary screenings, and there were people who had not seen the film. They were scared and they
Mm-hmm.
worried, and you could tell that they were enjoying that tension and the what will happen next and the jump scares. And a lot of that is gone in today's horror movies.
Mm-hmm. Completely.
I guess our attention, huh? Like that last shot with the raindrops on the leaves. I guess we wouldn't have that anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even
Yes,
this.
someone would
Yeah.
probably say, let's cut that, we can save 2 seconds and get to the kill faster.
Yeah. And isn't this shot interesting because they shoot from the back and then yet there's nobody from the front?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody there, right? Where is the guy?
I think
I
he's
always thought,
launching himself from the side somehow. It doesn't really make
I don't
physical
know.
sense.
No, it doesn't. But it so works.
Yeah, it does work. And Steve had talked about doing the freeze frame on this one because the reset to do it again would have taken way too long. After I think that moment, I think the chair effect had kind of gone a little off the rails. So it was just, let's go with what we got, and we'll do a freeze frame, and we'll move on. And it completely works. That is such a memorable moment in this film.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then a great cut to those guys, right? At
Mm-hmm.
their, what a
Mm-hmm.
climax between the chair.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is you have the guy who's hoping to, get some action, for lack of a better
Yeah.
phrase, who
Right.
doesn't, right to the people who just finished.
Yeah.
So it is that
Yeah.
dichotomy of, in a way,
Yeah.
sex equals death.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
What's funny you say that about the replicating the formula of the first film because this shot, Stevens, was a replica of the moment in the first movie when Kevin Bacon and Janine Taylor are having sex, and the camera pans up to Ned's body, and you hear them climax on the shot of
Mm-hmm.
his slit throat. It's the same kind of a.
And I would bet a lot of people really hung on to those kind of things and ideas and conflated them into something that they really weren't in terms of the sex equals death, and
Mm-hmm.
really latched onto that. Now, this is a big kill, and I know there's lots of stories. And Amy, I think you even know that, Bill had talked about how difficult this was to do.
Yeah. Well, anyway, back to the other thing. Like, if you enjoy yourself too much, you're going to die.
Yeah.
Right. So here we go.
Here we go.
So
Yeah.
I, Bill just said that that took so many hours to shoot with her under him. They just had to lie there for hours and hours and hours. And it was really, really hard. I wish I had more specifics about it, but he just said that scene was so intense, and he was a devoted actor guy. I mean, but he just said it was really, really hard.
Now that I think about it, Amy, because you're also an April Fool's Day, and you've never died on camera here. Have you ever had a death scene of your own?
No, no way. No way. Still trying to get me. It'll happen one day, but it's not going to be in a film probably. I don't know.
It's great to hear everyone talks about this, how just the randomness of it. Like the kids go to the bar and the ones that stay don't die. It's just pure luck, you know?
Yeah.
Well, and I
The ones
think
that
what's
stay.
interesting is, too, Charno's character was, you know, one of the more main characters. Like, he's very
Mm-hmm.
memorable, and he lives, which I think is interesting because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times you have your what might be considered disposable characters, but he's so memorable and he
Mm-hmm.
lives.
Well, he was in part three. When I got the script for part three, which I ended up not doing, everybody knows that. But it was he and I who were starting
Mm.
to go fight Jason.
I love this. I can never figure out why does she go upstairs to look for Mark? Like, how would Mark in the wheelchair get upstairs?
I
Never
never thought
figure
of
that
that.
Well, she's just wondering what the hell is going
Is
on,
going
right?
on.
But
out. Yeah.
She's like, Jeff, Sandra, I don't hear sex anymore. What's
Yeah.
yeah,
happening up there? I always found this moment and her death to feel, I don't, it's sad because she was such kind of a sweet character in a way, and it's just how she just stands there and
Mm-hmm.
waits for it to happen.
Mm.
Here's the first time we actually see the bag, I think, in the whole movie. Were you aware of the Steve that talked about how he didn't like the bag partly because it reminded people of the Elephant Man at the time? But were you aware of that, Amy?
I when he said it, I was like, huh, you know what? I do sort of remember that because Elephant Man was so big at that time. I don't remember any production meetings or anything like that trying to decide what they were going to do. But I'm really glad that they stuck with the bag because it's creepy.
Mm-hmm. It is. It is creepy. I remember whenever I see his thumb and that blood clot or whatever you had called it. I think a Steve Dash bash.
Yeah, exactly.
And interesting in a Friday the 13th movie that most of the movie is not raining, which I'm sure you were and the other cast members were happy about because just running around in rain and mud is just harder.
Well, I remember that as being a thing. Like, are we going to have it raining? And then they decide, let's just do the rain as they come back. Like, that's it. And I remember having just to work in that little bit of rain. I was like, this sucks. This was horrible. And then trying to match the makeup. I mean, it wasn't just the clothes, even, it was just a really big drag. So I'm so glad they decided no rain.
Because it had to have been cold. I mean, we're talking about the nighttime on the East Coast in
Yeah.
October.
And yeah. And then plus, when they make it rain, it's not just like a drizzle, they literally have a fire hose that's squirting on you.
I do like how you're like they wouldn't have left the place like this, and really it's like there's one table, one chair out of place, and a
I
mask on the
know.
stairs.
Yeah, really.
It was always creepy as a kid. This is when things really get scary. I remember as a 10-year-old just being
Oh, this
terrified
is the
at this
part where
point.
it started to get you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because it becomes more real because you're sort of living as an audience member with their discovery of what's going on, and I think it's
Mm-hmm.
creepy if you were to have seen this. Like, yeah, it's like they wouldn't play a joke like this. I mean, I don't know anyone who
No.
would play a joke like this in
No.
real life.
Yeah. And here
But it's
comes
much
my.
brighter, I think, in the transfers that we all know and watch today, because I
Yeah.
think one of the questions is, while things are going on in this room, you're sort of just standing there, not helping, because
Well, that's always been the thing. And in April Fool's Day, they did that thing. And I was like, you guys, I can see everything. They go, oh, no, you won't be able to see it on the film. It just makes you look like you're playing a blind person. But this is the scene where I'm pretty sure I ad-libbed this line. There's someone in this fucking room, which is my most requested line at conventions.
Yeah, this is like a classic horror movie moment where you go into that dark room, you know someone's there, but you don't know what's happening. So of course you're going to call out, the person's name.
I know.
Yeah,
Just saying, Paul, Paul,
yeah.
I can't see you. I'm blind. I'm suddenly blind.
there's something going
And
on over
plus,
there.
you can hear it. You can hear this whole tussle.
That's great right there.
When did you first see the bag? The first on set. Like, did Steve Dash walk out at a certain point, and you saw the bag for the first time, or
Yeah,
what your thoughts were?
I think that's when it all of a sudden, well, because he can't see anything because there's only one hole in there. So before shooting, they would just put it on right before they were about to do it because he had to do a lot of choreography to try and get everything and know where he was going to go and what he was going to do. So, which made it even creepier, right? So you rehearse it with the bag off, and then all of a sudden in the scene, he's got the bag on. It just makes it creepy. So the whole thing, like, it's really creepy. Like knowing that somebody's going to bash through the door and everything, and you have it hit your spots and you have to be scared. I mean, there's a lot of adrenaline in your body. In my body, there was a shitload of adrenaline all through this whole chase thing.
Yeah, it's so funny. I never noticed until just now. The scene before, you were reaching for the window and he came barreling through the window. And now in this scene, you're about to go out the window, but you change your mind. You go for the door, which totally makes sense.
When you read the script, did you kind of anticipate how much work this kind of final act of your character doing so much physicality would be, or did it become even greater than you thought it would be?
Oh, it was greater than I thought it would be. It's like, oh, Ginny stands on the other side of the door. Ginny opens the door and Walt falls out. No big deal. And then you're doing it and you got to hit everything and be scared to death. And I really jumped out that window and I really fell. And
And you
this
didn't
is
get a stunt fee, did you?
yeah, and I didn't get a stunt fee. That was when I was going to try and go for stunt fees, and I was like, no, this isn't going to work. I'm not. But I basically I had to do everything anyway because they don't have a lot of takes to shoot. I had to like fall and roll over, so you knew it was me. But um, Steve was
So,
saying that he remembers shooting this whole sequence the most because it probably felt like it went on and on and on. Um,
is that a real pitchfork coming through there?
yes, that is.
What was it like working with the Steadicam? That's the other great thing about it was just the great long tracking shots of you and all this stuff. And there's really not a lot of cuts in these scenes.
And the Steadicam wasn't really used in tons of horror films at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I remember that the thing is like you have to run fast but you have to run slow at the same time because the Steadicam's there, you can't overtake the Steadicam, and you knew where you were going to go, so like you had to like run really fast but go really slow. So it's hard to kind of make it like I wanted it to really work, and that's where I kicked him by mistake because I was supposed to count to 3 and I only counted to 2. And there he was. So it's like you had to just maintain, say, 3 feet with you in the lens. So no matter what I did, I had to maintain that 3 feet. So like a lot of times I would move too fast. We had to shoot again. I had to move. I don't know.
I never thought of that. Yeah,
hmm
makes
So
sense.
you're really paying attention to not only your character, but you are thinking,
Oh
I
God,
have
heck
to
no.
make sure that I don't catch up to the camera.
Oh yeah, and I'm sitting there praying that that shot worked at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
praying that like, did I run up the right way? Was I supposed to go up around this tree or on the inside of that tree? So it was that stuff too.
Well, especially in a movie like this where, as you said, you don't get a lot of takes, but I mean, cameras were so big back then and so
Oh
heavy, and the lighting, and you are in the woods. This is not a set. This is
no.
not, let's be on the edge of the wilderness. I mean, you're in the woods.
And then what they did is after you did a take with the Steadicam, like all the camera assistants would come up and pull the Steadicam off the guy. It was this guy named Eric Van Herenomen who I had a crush on. But anyway, they'd take the camera because it was so heavy. So I felt so responsible for like if you fuck up a shot, this poor guy's like running with 100 pounds of camera equipment on top of him, attached to him.
That's a fun little
Coming
fake
up.
out because, yeah, when you come in, you think it's Ginny's point of view looking in, and then it's actually Jason's point of view
I know, it's
looking into
very
the cabin.
strange how they could do that, huh?
And we should probably set the record straight, Amy, right? That this is you peeing, not the rat, correct? Supposed
That's
to
what
be.
they say. That's what they say. Yes, it's supposed to be me peeing because that was the one thing other than a wheelchair one of the money guys wanted. Where that came from, who had the idea, I do not know. Maybe someday Mr. Rat pee compliant guy will show up and say, this is
I mean, the
why.
the moment is so bizarre because I just don't think that as a character, Ginny is going to wet her pants because of
No,
a rat running by her.
yeah, no. There's
Especially
no.
since, I mean, Jason's chasing her with a pitchfork. So,
Exactly. I mean, there's so many other things that really could have made you wet your pants. I think you could have made it through this.
I know. And I mean, believe me, I hate rats. I really hate rats. But I remember when they said it was Coca-Cola too, by the way. When they said, we're gonna do this and Ginny pees, I was like, what? What? And there's a little bit of a thing like nobody just don't worry about it. There's a little bit of like that. Like don't worry your pretty little head. It'll just happen. You'll never know.
This is also a real pitchfork. I think they told me that it is cut and it cracks in half like that. But if he missed, he would have stabbed her head.
Well, no, because he was a stunt guy. He could control himself. It was me. I couldn't quite control myself.
And how was doing that? I mean, that was you with the
Yeah.
chainsaw, and obviously he had a protective plate, but I'm sure that made you slightly nervous.
Well, it was a fake chainsaw. They didn't.
Okay.
They had like rubber tips, you know, for
Got
the
it.
chains. And the chair was a balsa wood chair, so he's like, "No, it really hit me." But then I just bring it over my head, and then they do the cut to it crashed on him, so it wasn't like really bad.
They're like, you can only hurt him so much. We're
Yeah.
making sure.
Yeah, poor guy.
And more running through the woods. And I think Steve had mentioned at one point that kind of little creek puddle was put in there on purpose. So you get the idea of where your character is headed, because we've seen
Right.
it before with Jack Marks's sheriff character.
Right.
You're just going to take a break right now, though.
Yeah. She's tired.
Yeah, we really need to establish the puddle, so just hang out.
Now, when filming this, had you seen this set prior to actually seeing it? I mean, did you do any rehearsals? Did they walk you through things, or was that reaction of like, wow, this place is crazy real?
No, they walk you through. Like we had to practice rehearse the whole gig, and block it and all that kind of stuff. So I had seen it, but I'd probably seen it before it was dark, because the call was probably 5 o'clock. So I had already seen it all.
So Virginia Field made this set. Did you actually meet the real Virginia Field?
Yeah.
Did you know?
Oh yeah. Yeah. She was great. She was like she was also another one of those people that behind the scenes was so quiet and did her job so thoroughly and conscientiously. She's like Carl Fullerton in a way. Like they were just meticulous at what they did and so artistic about it.
Now, was putting the sweater on in the script, or was that something that was decided upon, sort of more on the spur of the moment?
Well, I remember it. This is what I remember. I can't remember what Steve said about it, but I remember during the blocking, he said, "Okay, now you're going to put the sweater on." I was like, "I have to put that on?" He goes, "Yeah, you're going to put it on and do that." So I don't remember it being in the script, because I remember being surprised. But he said, "No, I think it was," or something like that, because that sweater was disgusting. It had been in Western costume for a year or whatever. It was just gross. And so it was easy to be grossed out putting that on.
And these moments of Betsy Palmer were actually shot by Wes Craven, because Steve had mentioned that he was off doing something else, and Wes was gracious enough to shoot that stuff, which I think is such a great fact, such a little interesting tidbit.
Yeah.
And I think Steve showed me that the night we were shooting it.
You move in sync with her very much so. So it seems like that might have been the case.
Yeah, but then again, like you saw, I could just see this. Maybe they just showed me that footage, but I still couldn't quite see how do I do it. But again, it was like very clear as to what I needed to accomplish, which made me feel very secure in doing it.
Did you have her dialogue that you were then reading? Like, did you know what Mrs. Voorhees was saying, and then you?
Yeah, it was in. I think it was in the script, or it was in the pages that day of "You say this." And then this is the scene where he moves the machete, and I cut his finger because you see, he had to move the metal up, and that's where I hit the machete on the metal. Well, I had come down too early and hit the machete on the side where the handle was, and put the machete through his finger. So we had to stop that night while he went to the ER, came back, and then we just continued.
How long of a break was that? Probably a few hours. You had to get stitches. And did you guys just hang out and wait and wait?
Yeah, I felt so bad. And Steve's like, "Don't worry about it. You kidding, man? He's a stuntman. They love that shit." And sure enough, he came back. He went to the ER. Steve went to the ER with the machete through his shoulder, the makeup. So he had the best time ever. And he came back. He's like, "Yeah, look at this. This is great." He was fine. He was great. He was very gracious to me.
Good job, Jenny.
Yeah, man.
You did it.
I'm trying to remember how did I just bring it down really hard and stop? I can't remember how I pulled that one off without literally decapitating him.
I love how useless Paul is.
I know. Paul all of a sudden just appears out of nowhere and he knows exactly what's going on. Well, I guess I did it to him too, right?
I think this is an
Sure.
interesting moment because, I think as an audience, everyone's like, ooh, what's under the bag? But no,
Right.
we don't get to see it just yet.
When did you first see it, Amy, on set, the Jason
Ah,
makeup?
my God. I saw it with when Warrington Gillette it was in the very beginning of the shooting. When he comes crashing through the window. So I saw it the first time everyone else saw it. It's awful, wasn't it? Well, you'll see coming up.
And we
Didn't
can
you get
talk
to
about.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, so you got to shoot like 3 times, right? It was
Yeah, it
very
was
arduous.
horrible. It was the most stressful shoot ever. And Steve was trying to be all nice to me, like he didn't tell me. And he goes, "Come on, hey, let's go out. I'll take you out to dinner in town." We go out to dinner. He goes, halfway through, I probably had a couple martinis. It's like, "Oh, by the way, we got to shoot that scene again." I was like, "Fuck. Oh my God, that was the most stressful scene 3 times."
What about
But
it? What about it kind of worked you up to that place where you just didn't want to have to do it again?
because when we're about to do this, I have to sit there and just be all calm and relieved, like everything's over. And then just as I sit there, all of a sudden the high speed camera, which sounds like this. Okay, and they go, cue high speed camera. It's this running engine, right? And I have to still sort of just be there, like nothing's gonna happen. Nothing's gonna happen. But that window behind me is going to break. Somebody's going to come through, scare the shit out of me. And you can hear, even though it's fake glass and balsa wood and all that kind of stuff, it still shatters. And also, he's on a swing. So um, there's so much involved technically, stunt wise. For me to get it right, I got to get the pitchfork right so it's not in front of my eyes. I got to have everything right and then pretend. Okay, it's after Muffin comes in. That's right. So the dog comes in.
This also confused people because people are like, "Isn't Muffin dead from before?" So people thought it was
Yeah.
a dream.
So it was like, go ahead, bring on my death. I'm ready.
Now, this might tax the memory. Do you know, based on previous shots that you had done or things that happened and the ones that didn't work, are you able to tell watching this which take they used? Like,
No.
I was wondering, like, if you knew it was the second take, it's like, why do we do it 3 times?
Like,
Yeah.
Steve said the first take, Warrington hit like the top of the window instead of going through the window. That was one of the problems.
Right. Okay. So like standing up, going, "Oh, I'm so relieved," and just I have to stand at the exact spot and then pretend like I'm not hearing the high-speed camera. And then that comes in, he has to grab me. I mean, I have chills right now just watching and remembering. And then they have to shoot his face, right? They got to get his face on camera, so I have to like duck enough. And it happens in like 2 seconds, right?
It's a great moment, though. I mean, at the end of
It's
the
a
day,
great moment.
I hate to say it was all worth it, but that's
I
easy for me to
know.
say.
But you know what? We got a big payoff of it. So it was hard work pays off, right?
And there's also always been the question of whether the end was real or was it a dream? Is Paul dead or is Paul alive? And Steve has actually said that the end was not a dream, it is real. Paul is alive, but he's just not present in that final moment with Ginny and the ambulance.
They did shoot a fake head with eyes opening up. They had a real actress in through the altar that they didn't use. So originally her eyes were supposed to open at the end here, but
What did he
Now,
say? It just looked too cheesy or something, right?
yeah.
well, I'm glad we got to sit and chat around the fire for part 2. It was really
Yeah.
fun to hear all your stories and your memories, and thanks for joining us.
Oh, well, you
Absolutely.
guys, thank you so much for asking me. It's just an honor to kind of go back down this memory lane with you guys.
No, the honor was all ours. Thank you so much, and thanks to everyone watching and listening.
Yeah, we look forward to the next time we can all be together at Crystal Lake.